smart, alert, and wanted to make money as a securities and insurance company worker on Long Island, New York. She wanted to make money for her and for her clients. It's the American way. She was involved in, and this was a simple sexual harassment case. Instead, she had to pursue justice where attainable. She couldn't sue the defendant, so the only way to punish the person, you have to sue the corporation. And an in-house attorney was used to represent the Nikki V, the defendant. However, the attorney, Christopher Pincharelli, was in conflict of interest. He was working for New York Life, and he is now in jeopardy for false representation. New York Life had to hire a new lawyer, his name was Shaw, to avoid the now more serious representation issues. They had to hire Shaw because Pincharelli didn't belong on the case. This is where the Me Too movement continues, and the subject is the harassment of the defendant in that case, and you were the victim, Miss Nikki Crow. Okay, so tell me a little bit about how we walked yourself into that situation so I can take the story on from there. How did you get into that situation?
Well, Chris, like you said, it was a simple sexual harassment case. I was sexually harassed. I complained, and I was retaliated against, and I was fired. So what you do when you lose your job after complaining about sexual harassment and being fired is you get an attorney. So I did what everyone else does, and my experience, it just wasn't normal at all.
You gleaned over, or you passed over a little bit of the experience that got you to that point, because this is going to be about Me Too sexual harassment.
Yes, it is.
So you have to go through a little bit of the sexual harassment. He was apparently asking you out, and you continually turned him down. Go through a little bit of that with me.
I had got the job at New York Life to be a registered representative, and my immediate supervisor was another registered representative named Dominic Courtcamp, and I was under Dominic, working like most people in the firm, and a couple of things started to get weird for me. Him complimenting on my clothing, wanting to spend extra time with me, as he said, in and outside of the office, explained to me that I was too aloof. He never had a problem with my performance. I just kept ignoring my boss. Unfortunately, it wasn't the first time I had ever been sexually harassed. And in the financial services industry, it's very common that, female stockbrokers, female professionals, we are harassed. I ignored it. I figured if I could make this company money, and if I could sit here at my desk and do what I had to do, Dominic would go away. It's like a bad day.
In the fairness section, you say that this is not too uncommon. Can you, by any chance, take a guess as why that is?
The financial services industry, Wall Street, is a male-dominated industry. If I'm correct, female stockbrokers, we are less than 4%. Well, when I was a stockbroker, 4% of the workforce. Mm-hmm. And minorities, women that are minorities, I think for African American females, we are 0.02% or 0.2%, I should say, of the population working in financial services. So the history of Wall Street with women, it's never been friendly.
And then complicated with you're an African American, and you had a little bit of odds against you, so to speak.
Absolutely. African Americans are not the face of Wall Street. Mm-hmm. We're just not. And neither are women. So I guess for me it was a double whammy. But I'm a very determined person. And like I said,
been the right person for that, because now that I know you, I know a lot about you. So I would agree that you would have been good at this.
I was qualified for the job. As a matter of fact, when I came to New York Life, I was fully licensed. I had my general securities license. I didn't need anything from New York Life. I had my Series 63 license. I had experience in the stockbroker world. I had worked for several firms, and I even bought New York Life over business and made the money while I was there as well. So it wasn't a matter of confidence. It was just a matter of I have this new job. I just moved here, and I'm not going to let this kid ruin it for me.
So for this person who was your manager, who was not allowing you to, I guess you could say, relax and do your work without
breathe.
having to be,
right.
Not to have any kind of negative influence there, that did eventually affect your work. You weren't able to stay stable, I'm sure.
He wouldn't even allow me business cards and letterhead. He said until I gave him more and I showed him more, I would not receive business cards and letterhead. So if you've ever seen me working for New York Life Insurance Company, maybe you did years ago, I didn't have a business card for anyone. I would just write my number down on a piece of paper because I had refused to to meet his demands. So I said to myself, Self, you're just going to have to work without a business card. This too shall pass.
And your harasser used it against you, that particular thing about, well, you're not going to get your things that you want.
Right. Eventually, he told me I wasn't worth the ink that the ink that was printed
Put
on the paper, that I wasn't worth the ink. Right. So.
Again, let me fire a couple of discussion type questions, and you can answer or not answer however you would like. What was the general atmosphere at the workplace? Was it beyond the pale, or was it something that you would consider normal? Did you consider it normal?
No, I didn't at all. Financial services as an industry, it is very high pressured. It's a high turnover rate at many firms. You either produce or you get out. But what was unusual to me about this particular firm was the amount of control that the managers had over our personal lives. Just very unprofessional. But as I said before, unfortunately, it's not uncommon in financial services.
No one claimed that you were not working. You were working well. You did your job.
I was actually audited after reporting that I was sexually harassed. They audited my books.
Wonderful.
And I passed with, of course, flying colors. Because
for the sake of other potential victims that might be harassed, can you describe the first time you noticed the advances? We're going to be through this shortly, but I want you to be able to say what you can about it, all right?
Noticing the advances, I'm going to tell you the truth, Chris, I was in denial. It was weird for me. My boss would come around the corner, and I would find him watching me while I'm working. He would make comments about, I love hearing you on the phone. We spend a lot of time on the phone in the financial services industry doing cold calling, trying to set new appointments. An appointment set is your business. You should set an appointment a day, we used to say. And it was very strange. I had a boyfriend at the time, and he would ask me about my love life, and I thought, well, maybe he's just trying to be nice to me. I'm new. So I would say, I do have someone in my life. And he said, well, what does he do? And I said, well, my boyfriend he's in construction. I was very proud of that. And he says, well, maybe he could do some work for me. I thought, okay, compliments on the clothes. We need to spend more time together. I think for me, the final straw was when he threatened my job. He says, he called me one morning. He was on his way to, I think there was a conference in Hawaii, if I'm correct, and the managers were on their way to Hawaii. And before he left, it had to be about 6:45 in the morning, and my phone went off. And he says to me, you know what, I'm not happy with you. And I'm like, okay, Dominic, it's barely 7 o'clock in the morning. We do get up early, so what do you want? If you don't give me more, you're fired. I'm tired of this. So for me, after he gave me the, you put out more, I'm going to fire you speech, I said, okay, Self, that's it. You're not taking my job. You want to spy on me, you want to play your little games. I'm a tough girl, I can put up with that, but you're not going to play with my money, because that's what I'm here for. I'm here to make money. And then I went to our supervisor, the managing partner of the firm, and his name was Mr. Salvatore Farina. And Salvatore Farina was the managing partner of the Long Island office here in Melville on 110. If you remember, the office was on the corner of 110 there, not far from the Hilton. And I brought Sal Farina my letter. I wrote him a letter explaining.
I get to say the letter,
The letter, the Sal Farina letter is what I call it. And I gave Sal my letter, and I left his office. And if I recall, there was a moment where Sal said, wait or come back. Can you go get Dominic for me? So I went down the hall, and I retrieved Dominic. I said, Sal wants to talk to you. I went back to my desk. I remember Dominic going down the hall to Sal's great big office. Dominic comes back. I hear his shoes in the hallway, and he says to me, you, this is how he talks to me, you, over here. So I get up, and I follow him down the hall. We go into Sal Farina's office, and the office is opened up. There was a section of it that I had never seen. It made me feel very uncomfortable. And Dominic had my sexual harassment accusation letter in his hand, and Salvatore Farina gave my boss my harassment letter. I've been in management positions before. I've been working for most of my life. That's crazy, and that's unheard of, and it's dangerous.
The letter was written to
Salvatore Farina.
It was written to him.
To complain about Dominic Courtcamp. Salvatore
and Dominic
gave
had the letter.
Dominic the letter.
Yeah.
Yes, he did.
You were generally consistent in denying his advances.
Absolutely.
Luckily, I think you said that he hadn't touched you. Am I right?
That's right.
Yeah. Were any of your rebuffs cruel or out of the ordinary? I'm making this up on the fly because I really don't know how to answer this question. But, you know, how did it go? I mean, how did you approach the responses to his?
Most sexual harassers, Chris, they're not going to be so blatant. Hey, I want to have sex with you. Come on in the back. I mean, you might get a couple sleaze bags that are that bold. You know, in the right environment, they might get away with it. But most of the time, sexual harassers are very careful with their words. For example, he said to me, I want to spend more time with you. Well, let's play a little game. Do you want to spend more time playing golf? Would you like to spend more time?
Sales.
We could play this game. We could play ad lib all day, right? What? He's not going to come out and exactly say it. Skirt around it, you know, make a suggestion.
But there was never any misunderstanding. See, it was only key for me for the audience to know that there couldn't have been any sloppy misunderstanding.
Where are
about
my
the
business
actions or
cards?
anything
Where
like
was
that.
my letterhead?
Yeah.
You know.
But you did have your feeling that your job might be in jeopardy. That was how I felt. You, based on the material that you showed me, that there was a time where you knew that something.
It was coming.
It was coming.
It just kept getting progressively worse.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you, by any chance, happen to know of any other females in the building? There weren't that many, apparently, right?
Right.
That would have experienced anything that was like that.
I was a new employee, so I didn't have
Time and grade there.
Right. I did make friends there. Great people. Worked with great people. But I was observant about another female that worked in our unit. I'll call us a unit, meaning other registered reps that were under Dominic Courtcamp, and I was watching the way that he would talk to this one female, and he said to her one time that he didn't like what she had on, that she should dress more like another female. But his attitude towards her and the way that he would talk to her, it was not professional. It sounded more like an ex-boyfriend or someone very familiar with you. You know, we know each other, but there's a certain way, Chris, that I'm going to talk to you, and there's a certain way that I'm not going to talk to you because I'm not your family member, or I'm not your lover, or I'm not your BFF.
That's the one thing that
the way he talked to this young lady, it was disgusting, and I
kind of on
got
the lines on that, yeah.
Yeah, in the air. I could tell that something was wrong with that.
Well, that's important because, I mean, you know, maybe he's got a history of this, and maybe you can pin this guy down for having would anybody support you in a case, for instance?
This wasn't his first time.
These are the kinds of things I'm asking, you know.
This was not his first time. I wasn't his first victim. He was, learned, I'll say.
Let's go to the case a little bit about the legal aspects to it. So, would you say that the fact that the attorney was not the appropriate attorney for you, and at that time you were naive to know what the representation meant, and from what I can see, I've spoken to a few other people, including somebody that I know you knew I talked to, had said that there is a possibility that the relationship could be damaging to that attorney, which is what I mentioned in the opening, because I guess that is a misrepresentation, isn't it? Or it could be. It could be deemed that way.
We're speaking about the New York Life lawyer.
Yeah.
Okay. What happened with that, so that our viewers understand, is I had hired an attorney. His name is Jason Abelove, 666 Old Country Road. Like everyone else hires an attorney. He has to do what? File and serve the lawsuit. Well, where he filed and served it was directly to New York Life, to an attorney inside the company, Chris. His name is Christopher Pinciaroli. He's general counsel. He had another title years ago, but
that was a mailing, not a filing, right?
Nope. It was
so
served
he didn't
with
file it then? Oh, he served them.
He served him.
Oh.
He served directly New York Life Insurance Company, directly to this gentleman, this lawyer, Christopher Pinciaroli, and it never reached outside counsel, Chris. It stayed inside the company. And what my attorney, Mr. Abelove, was telling me is, hey, Ms. Crow, guess what? I got great news. New York Life's attorney called us. So, you know, like most people in litigation, I'm happy, I'm excited, yay, you know. it was just a know how to say it. When I realized what was
Smoke and
happening to
mirrors?
me, just one of the most disappointing things I've ever experienced in my life. I paid this gentleman $5,000 for a retainer that I never received, for him to just go and contact the in-house attorney at New York Life Insurance
Can
Company.
you claim some money out of that back? Can you claim that money back? 'Cause you
I
didn't
started
actually
the
do
process
anything
for
about
that,
it.
right.
Yeah.
I was in arbitration. That was very interesting. Arbitration's interesting in this state. And I vacated the arbitration award because I wasn't happy with the arbitration. That's another show. And what I did was I went to court with Mr. Abelove over my $5,000 that me and my family so diligently
Scratched up.
Mom, I'm going to get your money back. And I was put into a small claims court, Chris, to get back my arbitration award in Nassau County. It was a judge. His name was Judge Siller. Ended up recusing himself for his behavior. And I was actually filing motions in small claims court, which is unheard of. But what they were doing in Nassau County is that they were trying to protect this lawyer and put me in the wrong court
They often
with
do
a bad judge, doing bad things to me. My family had to watch me get spanked for a while until I met AFLR, Gary Jacobs, and I went to a meeting, and I got my strength back, and he taught me how to stand up to the judge.
That's around the time I met you. Yeah,
that's when I met you
That's
guys.
certainly what he does.
I went to you guys for help.
I'm going to take a minute just to read something that came from one of the papers that you gave me. I think it's important. The defendant, Dominic Courtcamp, is the person who was the abuser, regularly criticized Nikki for not spending enough time with him. This is a paragraph that I was going to explain a lot of it in one shot. Though she voluntarily went to all the trainings and worked at mall kiosks, she was still picked upon as not having spent enough time with her manager. Courtcamp aggressively pursued personal sexual relationship with Nikki, including regularly commenting on her appearance and her attire. Nikki always rejected his advances. Repeatedly over time, Courtcamp insisted she go out with him and have drinks after hours, with Courtcamp constantly threatening her with her employment in favor of time that she could spend with him. Nikki finally wrote a letter to the managing partner, which I spoke about before, Sal Farina, in hopes that Courtcamp's supervisor would bring the harassment to an end. She was asked to resign shortly thereafter and refused. This eventually caused her to be fired. That sums it up, right?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I didn't even get an option to refuse to get fired. I got fired about 6 times. I have 6 different fire letters that came from every corner of the state. Every New York Life universe, somebody sent me a letter from here to Sleepy Hollow, and that is the truth. And yeah, I was fired. I remember it. It was the worst Memorial Day weekend that I've had in a long time, and the letter came in the mail, and I had, you know,
you must have
a
had
rough
different
weekend.
levels of vulnerability that must have caused it difficult for you to continue
and they owe me money
working.
too. I just want to mention
yeah?
that. Yes, New York
Okay.
Life, you owe me more money.
Go for
You
that.
didn't finish paying me. That wasn't it.
So before you felt like your job was in jeopardy, you felt vulnerable at different times.
Absolutely. Scared. The worst thing is to leave your previous job. This is the securities industry. You know, we just don't walk into firms and say, hey, how are you? Hi, Chris. I just want to sit here and work. How's it going? I'm Nikki. Can I just sit here and sell stock to your clients? You know, it takes time. We have a lot of paperwork.
It's a lot of qualifications.
I have to call people up. Hi, how you doing? It's Nikenji. Guess what? We're moving again. I'm sorry, Dr. Jones. I mean, I have to get my people ready to move. If they're going to move, if it's right for them. I mean, it's all the anxiety that goes along.
Kind of start over.
And it's a highly regulated industry, and as I said before, the paperwork is a headache. You don't want on your U4, your U5, how many times are you going to move around? It makes you look like you can't even sit in one spot and make a living for yourself.
I don't know what a U4, U5 is.
These are forms that in the brokerage industry we have to fill out paperwork. It shows every place I've worked. If I have liens against me, I manage your money. People need to know what I do, where have I been, how long have I been out of work. So this is what the U4 and the U5 is. It's our registration papers, it's our papers to transfer.
You got to be up to snuff.
Right, the government has to keep up with, you know, with security advisors and other securities licensed individuals. So when you make a move in our industry, it is a big thing. It takes a lot of time So to go, they know they got you. Once you get in, it's the honeymoon phase. Hey, welcome to New York Life, right? Rock you to sleep. And then when you get in after doing all that paperwork, as a matter of fact, Chris, I had applied for the job in October, and I wasn't able to start until January. That's how long it even took me to go through the paperwork. Do I have debt? Any liens against me? Credit card bills had to be paid off. It's a whole process. So to go through all that, to get a new job, and then to find out that you're working for some narcissistic sexual harasser, it was, in my opinion, I'm entitled to an opinion, that's what he seemed to me, it was horrible. But I wasn't willing to just say, hey, he's horrible, let me just find another place to work. It was not an option. It was like, this kid, he's not gonna rock me, he's not gonna move me.
Well, once you start in the place, in almost any place that you work, and you're developing a relationship as you go, you're developing habits that will work, continuity inside the place, relationships you want to develop and foster, and then you have to deal with this kind of crap. Throws everything off. Now, going forward, if I could just tell me where you're at now regarding your plan and how you can recover from this, if it's...
Well, Christopher, through a course of different events, an RJI, which is a request for judicial intervention, and I just want the public to know that until an RJI is filed in your case, the courts don't even know that you exist. You're just a shadow docket. The case had no life. The RJI was finally filed, and I realized that I had to become my own lawyer. It was Little and Robinson. I had an attorney there. Her name is Andrea Paparella. And Andrea decided that she just didn't want to be my lawyer anymore, Chris. So she just left the firm, and I didn't get a phone call or anything, and, But through the filing of the RJI, another lawyer, he just decided, hey, I'm just going to pick up this girl's case and go into Suffolk County Court. It was, I don't know if you've ever heard of Justice Pastoressa. He went into his courtroom with no identification. He didn't identify himself to the court. He couldn't show the court that he was my lawyer, and he went in there and he disposed of my case. And that's how I kind of found out that it even got into the courthouse. So I went back in, Chris. I'm Crow. It's my case. And I said, you know what, I'm going to revive this. And that's just what I did. I started filing motions and asking judges to recuse themselves, namely Joseph Pastoressa, for allowing this young man to come into his courtroom without having met him a day in my life. I spoke to James Halter a few times. I didn't like him, told him I didn't want to hire him. How did you even allow this guy to do this? So I wrote the judge. I filed a motion. I filed a notice of motion. And I asked the judge, to please explain how is it that something like this can happen. This is dangerous. So you mean a stranger can come off the street and say that they represent someone and you're going to reward them a lien? The young man put a lien against me as well, this attorney that I had never met before.
For what services?
None that he ever did. That's why I asked Joseph Pastoressa to recuse himself.
I'd like to see what that bill looks like.
You have to see it. It was interesting. I have never been paid off of this case, so I'd like to know how he figures that he's worth, or it's worth anything. It's actually quite funny. I didn't think it was funny at the time.
No, I bet.
But that was the first judge that I asked to please remove himself off my case. And after Joseph Pastoressa, I was given Denise Molina. Justice Molina. She was the next judge assigned to the case, and she sort of followed suit. I showed you the article,
Yeah, I saw
Chris.
that. She dismissed the motion.
Right. I wanted a stay of disclosure.
Right.
Seaforth and Shaw, I don't even know how they got on the case. Remember Christopher?
Yeah.
Right. So where did they come from? We don't even know. I wanted to address that. How did you get here? Where have you been for the past? I don't know. Right. Where's the first? Right. Okay.
What do you know, and why is your name here, et cetera?
I said to to Denise Molina, Justice Molina. I filed a motion. To her, and I asked her, this Christopher Pinciaroli, he's a corporate lawyer. He has no business in any court in this state, and all 50 states. Corporate attorneys cannot practice law for who they work for. He gets a check.
Molina dismissed it and said that he was a New York State.
Right. I didn't ask her that.
Yeah.
I didn't ask her that. I said, he's a corporate lawyer. What's he doing in your court? What's he doing here?
What's he doing representing you was my question, in any which way.
Well, he wouldn't.
How?
Right. He wasn't representing me. He was representing his own company, Christopher Pinciaroli's a New York Life employee.
Yeah, but wasn't he, how did he get, this is what I was talking about before, wasn't he in some way coming in to represent you in some way?
Not me, never me.
Never
It was
you.
never.
All right.
This was another attorney. This was
All right.
the one I'd never met, young man named James Halter from Little and Robinson. They're on 800
That
3rd
name wasn't
Avenue.
even here. I mean, yeah.
And when Andrea Paparella left the case, he, he thought that he would take over, and I didn't want to use this gentleman, and he decided upon himself that he would carry on my case without me, and he went to court, and instead of getting me a preliminary conference, my case has never even had a preliminary conference, he just simply asked the judge to give him some money and to get rid of the case.
Okay, we got 2 minutes left.
Okay.
I want you to try to sum this up, but now we're going to talk about 3 things. Legally, what is your next step? For yourself, what is it that you can do? What are you doing now to try to get out of the situation? And number 3, is there anything that you can do to advance to an audience person who may be watching what they might be able to do had they be facing what you faced?
Absolutely. Chris, what I've been explaining today is, I don't know if you've ever heard of a void order. You know, we always discuss at AFLR that judges cannot just sit up there and do what they want. They have to follow the rules of the court. Allowing a corporate attorney into a case is against the rules of the court. So I will be filing a motion to get back into court.
So it's a corporate
and I'm
attorney,
also
okay.
at this time, I explained to you, Richard I. Fine has agreed to be a consultant on my case. Richard I. Fine is a lawyer that is out in California.
I spoke to him.
Yes, you did, to Mr. Fine, and he is known for teaching the public about void orders, which is how I learned about them
Yeah,
myself.
He sounds like he'd be a help.
Yes, he is going to be a help. So I'm going to be raising money for Richard's, for his retainer.
For the fee, right?
For the fee. And we're going to bring the case back up. And these lawyers that think that they're finished with the case, I'm going to be subpoenaing these lawyers to ask them to come back and to stand up and to
Okay.
face the music for what they've done. And that's
And
what
for
I'm
the
gonna
last
do.
part of this is the advice you may want to give when someone is approached in the business place. Is there anything for that
Yes.
matter? Okay.
Always be underestimated. Chris, if someone's underestimating you, they can never see you coming. The minute you start waving to them that you know what you're doing or you're somebody, they're going to know that you're coming. If a lawyer tells you that something is right, let him tell you that. He's a court officer. He's sworn to be something different than the rest of us to hold. He's supposed to be a moral individual. He's supposed to have a different type of character. Being a lawyer is not,
Yeah.
it's not for everyone.
That's why we do what we do. In the last
And
20
I was
seconds,
underestimated.
What about the potential victims? Is there any advice that you can think about?
For
that you may wanna
potential
give them?
victims,
Yeah.
if you feel that a judge has ruled in your case and it is not lawful, I don't want you to panic. The clock has stopped for you. A null or a void order is exactly that. It's null and void and it does not exist. You can always go back and fix things in court if it's not right. The court has rules. The judge is not the court. The court is the court.
Thank you, Nikki Crow.
Thank you,
First
Christopher.
New York State, New York Life Insurance Company. That's the suit. You've been watching Gray Matters, the program that shines the light on the events in the society we live in and the need for education and reform. We keep you up to speed in the world of politics, society, new trends, and hot-button issues like this one. Remember, you can't get this information just anywhere. See you on your TV room next week. Thank you for watching.